It's Friday afternoon in Sydney, and that means it's time for Friday Biz with Marc and Stuart. I'm Mark Kennis. Stu actually this week is in Brisbane, so we're doing this interview remotely. Stu, we published a report on REE Tech last week, and I think this is actually the first one that we've translated into Chinese. And REE Tech is a online education company out of China, listed on the ASX. Really interesting, fast growth. But the interesting part is, and this is especially for our Chinese viewers, we've translated it into Chinese. It's available on our website, so by all means have a look. It's of course available in English as well. But yeah, I thought we should flag this, the first one in Chinese, and I think there's a huge readership in Australia, of Chinese origins, and of course, a lot of investors in China as well. So have a look at that and let us know what you think. Stu, you're not in the office today. You're in Brisbane. What's happening there?
Yeah, so I've come up here to attend the Resources Roundup meeting put on by Vertical Events. I love going to these meetings. You get 20 or 30 companies in one place, generally talking about a particular theme, and all of these companies are resource companies. And I come away from the presentations feeling quite bullish. The operating environment is good in terms of pricing and demand for most of the companies that are trying to develop new projects across a range of minerals and metals. And I'm particularly impressed at how the market continues to be conservative on price, on valuing these companies, in spite of the fact that the resources sector well and truly bottomed in 2016 and it's making a recovery. Another big theme, when I was talking to some of the attendees last night, is Canada. Canada goes to the polls on Monday of next week, and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his opposition counterpart Andrew Scheer are pretty much neck and neck. So I think it's going to be a wipeout for the Liberals under Trudeau, and the Conservatives will be in charge of Canada as of next week. Now that's important because in Justin Trudeau's Canada, the only thing you can raise capital on is dope and blockchain. Right. As someone unkindly said to me. You'll now have the Canadian exchanges going back to providing some valuation leadership on key resource stocks, and I think that's got to be great for any that's traded on the Australian Stock Exchange. So watch out for any particular mining company that's involved in looking for something in Canada. Smart money.
Any particular names too that come to mind in that respect? Any particular names that come to mind?
Well, yeah, it's an interesting one. It was a tiny company called Corazon Mining, capitalized at a mere $6 million, but they had a huge nickel project called Lynn Lake in northern Manitoba. Very much a Voisey's Bay lookalike in terms of the potential, and the nickel price has been running hard. So I mean, part of the reason why that company you need a magnifying glass to see the market cap is just because it's Canada and because it's been nickel. Well, both of those situations are fixed. So I think companies like that. Now we need to do our homework on that one. That's not a Pitt Street Research client, but I came away thinking, anyone kicking around in Canada with ASX listed mining companies operating there could be in for a lot of fun.
So one thing that caught my eyes too this week was the Latitude float that was pulled, and I think that was the second time after the first try last year. I think they could have gotten it away at around below $1.80 as opposed to the original price, which I think was $2.25. But right. I think they figured the aftermarket would be would be hard basically, and a lot of retail investors would get stuck with shares below the listing price. And I think Meyer was one of the best examples where retail investors get screwed over by something like this. And I thought it was interesting because it means that the market is still sensible about this sort of stuff.
Right.
What I thought was really, I wouldn't say upsetting, but at least something that was very interesting, to put it mildly, is the $22 million bonus for the CEO just to get this listed. I thought that was a huge amount of money actually, and as a potential shareholder, you're basically funding that bonus, and you'll never see any cent back of that in terms of investment in the company. A few of the other reasons I think was that overseas investors especially are still concerned about the regulatory environment in Australia post the Royal Commission. I think that's interesting in a broad sense because there's a lot of things happening still. It's all sort of moving panels, and basically, if you look at it at the core of it, Latitude, even though it was sort of positioned as a tech company, an online sort of lending company, basically it's geared towards consumer spending, and the consumers, as you know, are under pressure, high indebtedness in Australia, and so I think all in all, the sum of it all was that it wouldn't do well in the aftermarket, which was a reason to pull it. So I think given the size of it, more than 3 billion, I think this was remarkable actually.
Yeah. Now, do you see any fallout for the broader market, as in a big vote of non-confidence in the capital markets, or is this an isolated incident?
I think this underlines the realism in the market right now, that something like this doesn't float. Because you and I see a lot of capital raisings in small cap and micro cap area where we think, how the hell, excuse my French, can you raise money for something like this? And I think investors are just sensible and saying, look, the conditions aren't right. The whole sort of package needs to make sense. And I think in this case it didn't. So Stu, we started another item on the show a couple of weeks ago. Whatever happened to? So this week we decided to have a look at Michael J. Fox. Whatever happened to Michael J. Fox? Do you remember him, Stu?
Look, I was a huge fan of Michael J. You recall in Family Ties, he plays the role of the conservative son, born to some left-leaning hippie-type parents of the 60s generation. That appealed to me a lot. In fact, he motivated me to think about becoming a conservative politician myself when I was a teenager.
Right. He motivated me to study economics, believe it or not.
Right.
I was in high school at the time, of course, and sort of thinking about, okay, what do I want to do with my life? And Alex P., what was his last name? Alex P. something. Alex P. Keaton, yeah. He sort of motivated me to look into economics, and I really liked it in high school. And went to uni, studied economics. So that's, life imitates art, so to speak. Absolutely. But more interestingly, so since Back to the Future and sort of his glory days, a lot has happened, and he's suffering from Parkinson's, I think. Right. And he's the Fox Foundation. I'm betting you know more about this than I do, but they've been a big supporter of research in this field.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you've read the book Lucky Man, you'll know a lot of the story. He published his memoirs several years ago. So Michael J. is involved still in film and television production, and very occasionally appears on the big screen. But most of the time now is devoted to his foundation. Parkinson's is a large market opportunity. I estimate that probably 1% of the adult population over the age of 65 has Parkinson's. My mother is one of those. She was diagnosed in 2009. And it's a terrible condition. Initially just a movement disorder problems, but in many cases can transition into dementia, which is what my mother has. Right. Michael J. Thankfully, he was young onset Parkinson's, but he seemed to have avoided that trouble. Now, the Fox Foundation is an amazing organization, brings together some of the best and the brightest minds in Parkinson's research. And where it interfaces with the kind of work I've done in biotech over the years is often companies will be working on new generation Parkinson's compounds. They'll need to do some safety work in the first instance. So the Fox Foundation will often fund the early work in potentially new treatments for Parkinson's and related disorders. We had a company traded on the exchange called Living Cell a few years ago that had some support from the Fox Foundation for a work that they had. So yeah, anyone who's involved in Parkinson's and gets past the radar screen of the experts at the Fox Foundation is definitely worth paying attention to. So thank you, Michael J. We liked you on the big and small screen 30 years ago, and we like you even more for the great work you're doing for the human race now. All
right. On that note, let's see what we're drinking today, Stu.
Yeah. So up in Queensland, I thought I'd sample some of the local beers. This is Ballistic. Well, they've called it oaked XPA because they've stored it in oak barrels. It's a pretty powerful IBU of about 50 XPA. Right. They've used Magnus and Citra to really hit you with some powerful tropical fruit notes in there, and but it doesn't sort of burn your mouth out in terms of being too bitter. So I think they've done a good job on this one. It was relatively easy drinking when I was calming down after such a bullish day yesterday. Right. So yeah, if you're up in Queensland, the brewery's in a Brisbane suburb called Salisbury. I'd definitely go out there and take a look at this one.
All right, and maybe some of those companies that you've been talking to today and the day before might go ballistic as well, with a bit of luck.
Particularly if they're involved in Canada.
Yeah, absolutely, especially in the cannabis space. But all right, well, that's it for this week. So to all investors, have a good weekend, and we'll see you next time.